welcome to episode 77, part 1 of All Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have mutual interest in serial killers, and as long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing some in prison.
Yes, happy Valentine's Day. I think this is... Oh my God...
Are you bored of love? Is that what's wrong?
Oh, mate, I'm up to my fucking tits in love, and I couldn't be less excited about it.
So bored of love.
No, I'm just... it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, if all goes to plan, this will be the quickest turnaround we've had between recording a show and putting it out.
Yeah.
So we can
fresh, hot off the press.
Yeah, we can be incredibly topical. Although I haven't looked at the news today, because what am I going to see on it? More people have died from a pandemic.
Yeah. The
Tories have siphoned more money off to their fucking grubby mates.
Yeah, news about the roadmap, which is due in a week tomorrow.
Yeah. Ugh. Did
you get anything for Did you do Valentine's Day? I don't think. I'm not really asked, do you?
Yeah, because I just like buying presents. So
yeah, I did some crafting for Valentine's Day.
I don't believe you.
Listen, strap in for this. I've not sent you a picture yet.
Strap in?
So,
is that what you made?
Oh, no.
Did you crochet a strap on?
Oh, God, don't. So, I decided for Tim, I thought, well, what I'll do, he was like, don't get me anything for Valentine's Day, please, I hate it. I was like, okay, fine. Does that mean if you don't get me anything, I'll fucking find where you are and cut your knob off, mate? So, I got some wrapping paper that is the carpet from The Shining, and sort of the decoration that you see around The Shining, and the pattern of a maze and stuff like that, and the typewriting. So and I decoupaged it onto a little box, and it was very effective.
You decoupaged?
I decoupaged it, man. Yeah.
Does that mean you're officially perimenopausal now?
I think that's exactly what it means. Yeah.
The sound of someone brushing decoupage onto either a box or an item of furniture is also the sound of their last egg rolling down a fallopian tube.
I think it also means that I'm going to get ignored by men more than I already do in society.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think that's definite, which is a relief, to be quite frank with you. So yeah, I think that's what happened. But unfortunately, I actually really enjoyed it, and I want to do more.
Really? Okay.
I did. I enjoyed it.
Oh, if there's any decoupagists listening who feel sort of offended by my light-hearted ribbing of a friend, obviously just PVA your concerns onto a sideboard and don't send them to me.
You do know that someone's going to message you and say, actually, I think you'll find that I was infertile before I started decoupage,
yes.
So I'm not really sure what your point is.
Yeah, I'm sure, and obviously that's not... Yeah, it's not about you.
My decoupages are my babies.
Well, actually, I've just bought a antique screen.
Oh, yes. I've always fancied one of them, but I don't know where to put one at the moment. I was talking about those with a friend as well the other day, these screens, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like... Have I shown you a picture of it?
No, you've not sent it me. Oh, sorry, I'm yawning now as well, bloody hell.
How dare you? Well, it's like massive, and it's like 4 things, it's 4 that fold out, normally it's 3. And it's like Victorian decoupage on it. It's like...
Ooh.
Yeah, and some of it's coming off because it's very old, but...
Oh, I can sort that out for you. Don't worry about that.
Well, come round with your little brush and we'll see how we get on.
We better get on with this, actually,
yeah.
Speaking of getting on, because we've not even said who we're doing. This was a listener suggestion, and an excellent one at that, because we didn't think of this for some bizarre reason, and we have done it as a live show. Mm-hmm. We're doing Rodney Alcala.
Yeah, Alcala, I think it is pronounced.
Oh, fucking hell, right. Rodney Alcala. That's who we're doing. I flip between the two, but I'll go for Alcala.
Yeah,
Alcala,
we'll do both.
Alcala.
We'll split it shit so no one gets jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, also known as the dating game killer.
Yes.
I think even if you haven't heard of him, he's quite famous. You will have seen a clip of him on the American show The Dating Game, which, if there's British listeners, is the equivalent of Blind Date. Oh, and if Americans aren't familiar, or people all over the world aren't familiar with Blind Date, it's like the dating game, but also it was hosted by
Miss Cilla Black.
Miss Cilla Black, who was, she's quite complicated to explain, isn't she? She was a red-headed woman from Liverpool who was a pop star in the 60s and sort of was mates with the Beatles, which I think makes her and her music sound cooler than it was. And then she became sort of a staple of light entertainment.
Yeah, not a very nice person by all accounts.
She's dead now, so we should tread carefully. But yes,
Oh no, this is the perfect time to say what you want.
Okay.
You can do whatever the fuck you want. I could call her a paedophile if I wanted, doesn't matter.
I mean, she was knocking around with those types, but I would
She
say
was, yeah.
I can't think of anything worse than being haunted by Cilla Black. You know, like walking home
Hello, Chuck.
Yeah.
How are you?
late at night and then hearing a rattling, and it's her front teeth. She very famously had big front teeth that apparently she had
teeth,
insured for loads of money because it was sort of her trademark. And she had this really over-the-top Scouse accent, and she also hosted a show called Surprise, Surprise. So she'd go, surprise, surprise, and it was really quite intense.
Yeah, she used to sing the theme tune, didn't she?
Oh God, life is full of surprises. Yeah, and she.
Oh my God, I've totally forgotten about that.
Imagine that now. Someone hosts a show and also sings the theme tune to it. You just kind of wouldn't stand for it, would you?
Like Davina McCall or Oprah coming out singing her own theme tune.
Yeah, it would be mad, wouldn't it? Because the only person who's allowed to do that is RuPaul.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, that's. I mean, you'd feel weird if he didn't.
Yeah, if he wasn't
would
pushing
imagine.
a single. So Cilla Black, I think I've talked about before because it's seared in my memory as faking an orgasm on stage at the Royal Variety performance. I think
What?
I've definitely spoken about this before, Rachel.
Hold on, rewind. I've never heard this before. What? Tell, please.
I'm Googling it as we speak. Cilla Black fakes orgasm. So her, Barbara Windsor and someone else. It looks like there aren't many great matches for your search. Oh, Pornhub's the first one. Cilla Black.
Oh God.
So she's in her, Barbara Windsor and someone else. I'm pretty sure it's Royal Variety. Yes. And she's wearing a sort of, Cilla's knocking on a while. And she's in sort of like, she's got amazing legs. And she's in like completely see-through tights with a garter over the top. Well, no, she's in a Princess Diana sort
20
of...
denier.
20 denier. A bodysuit and like a corset over the top and then netting again on the arms. And then... God. So she sort of goes on stage and I think she also had her legs maybe insured. Maybe the teeth was Ken Dodd.
Another beloved Scouser.
Yeah. So yeah, she sort of came on stage and she has like a heart over her on the corset if you look closely on the crotch and two hearts over the boobs.
Oh my God.
And I think the whole performance was, oh, she's old, but you still might fuck her. So she is wearing this outfit and then she sort of walks on stage and she sings. And then she sort of goes like, ooh, and like sort of pretends to have an orgasm. And then the lights switch on. It's a Royal Variety performance from 2001. And
That is too recent for my liking.
yes. And the lights switch on. And basically the hearts on her boobs light up and her crotch lights up as she fakes an orgasm. It was like a thing that she did with Barbara Windsor and Lily Savage.
I am completely baffled by this entire thing. I've got to find it now.
I mean, I've seen it and it doesn't make much more sense. Yeah, I'm going to show I'll send you a link to
Please do.
this article. But if you Google Cilla Black Royal Variety Performance 2001, you'll see it.
Fucking hell. What is wrong? I don't know.
That is a gig as well where if you did it as a stand-up, they'd be like, you can't swear, you can't do any sexual material, you can't do anything, you can't talk about anything.
Yeah.
And then, so she sung Gotta Have a Gimmick from the musical Gypsy. And if you go on as a beloved entertainer, you can fake getting yourself up and light your cutch up.
Oh, God almighty. What is wrong with...
Not cutch, that's... My brain's not working yet. Like your cooch up. Cutch is just a cuddle.
What's wrong with the British? What's fucking wrong with us, man?
Well, they're they're sort of simultaneously, rather, incredibly repressed and incredibly bawdy.
Yeah.
So there's this weird space that everything exists in. Yeah, it's strange.
Oh, God. Anyway, I mean, to be honest, this is a nice palate cleanser going back to Rodney Alcala.
Yeah, because he's a horrible cunt. He also had a couple of aliases, didn't he?
Yeah, John Berger, and Rod Alcala. Which John Berger is just like one of those names where it's like, oh, I've got to make a name up. What's the first thing I can see? Oh, that man's eating a burger. I'm John Berger.
Well, I actually think it's because his dad was called Raul Alcala Burker, so Buqur. Yeah, so I think it comes from that.
I really like the name Raoul, but we can't really use Raoul as a name right now because of Raoul Moat, can we? It's too associated.
Oh yeah, everyone
with,
thinks of a fishing rod and some chicken.
Yeah, it's the first thing everyone thinks of now, isn't it?
Yeah.
God, well, Raoul Moat probably is another episode, to be quite frank, a spin-off, I reckon.
But he's a spree killer.
Yeah, but I think it'd be quite an a couple of people have asked, actually. It's a very interesting one because of all the stuff around it and social media, which was very distasteful. But we must continue with this.
Yeah.
So his mum was Ana Maria Gutierrez. Anytime anyone says Gutierrez, I always think of the lawyer from... What's it
Serial.
called? Yeah, who had that.
Yeah.
So, really weird way of speaking. You said on this day. It's like, fucking hell, what is your problem, love? Apart from the fact that you didn't turn out to be very good. She's dead now, I can say what you want. I could say she was a paedophile. So...
Stop saying dead women are paedophiles. It's Valentine's Day and that's how you've chosen to spend today. You've taken a break from fucking decoupaging to slander dead women.
In 1951... the father moved the family to Mexico.
Rachel, we haven't said when he was born.
Oh, fucking hell, that's a good point. He was born Rodrigo Jacques Alcala, am I saying it right? Bucua, August 23rd, 1943, in San Antonio, in Texas. So, in 1951, the father moved the family to Mexico. And 3 years later, he abandoned them, which is incredibly bad manners. Okay, let's move you all to Mexico. Right, see you later, I'm off.
Yeah, Rodney was only 8 years old, and at this time, he was one of 4. He had 2 sisters and a brother as well.
Mm-hmm. When he was 11 years old, his mother decided that they were going to move back to America, and they moved to Los Angeles. Now, there's not really much about his childhood, to be quite honest, is there?
Not at all.
It doesn't seem to be any big event apart from his father leaving. There doesn't seem to be any drama. Seemingly quite normal. In 1961, if you've got your bingo card ready, he joins the army as a clerk. I really hate that word, you know, clerk.
Clark.
I think it's clerk. I never know I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
I think we would say clerk over here. I think it means someone who works in the office, but in America, I assume it means someone who works in retail because clerks because as soon as you say it twice, you're like, that's not a real word. You know, the Kevin Smith film Clerks is about 2 people who work in... one works in a video shop and one works in a convenience store.
That's a word that I can't get my tongue round. That's a horrible thing to say. Also, the Americans call estate agents realtors.
Oh, yeah.
And they say realtor. That's another one I just can't... When I see that, I just go, ugh, really bugs me. It's funny how words bug you, isn't it? Anyway, his army career wasn't very successful because in 1964, he had what was described as a nervous breakdown and he went AWOL. He ended up hitchhiking to his mum's house. He was eventually diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder by a military psychiatrist. Later on, he was diagnosed with several other things: narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, malignant narcissism. That's brutal, isn't it? Psychopathy, sexual sadism, I can't read that word again. We can't record this early again because my brain's not working. Do you know what? My vocabulary has been absolutely dire since I've not been gigging. Can't remember words for things.
I think maybe you're high on those PVA fumes.
That's what it is.
Decoupaged all the words out of your brain.
Is it because I've got no eggs left now? Is that what it is? Have I got that thing where women go, I've got the... When they say they're going through the menopause, they get a bit forgetful and stuff. Do they? I don't know.
Well, I know people get baby brain, so I think like hormones can affect stuff like that. But yeah, I think maybe just because we're not using our speech faculty as much. You know, your brain's constantly making like synaptic pathways, and maybe those aren't as clear and fresh as they were when we were sort of gigging a lot.
And it's weird as well because like even though you're doing Zoom gigs or whatever, you don't have to have that same awareness of things, do you? It's like you're not going on stage thinking, right, I'm ready for anything. Like if someone says something, I'm ready. You don't have that same thing, do you? Because what happens? They just get fucking muted. So
yeah, because also when you're doing a gig, you're literally analysing 100 things in the room.
Yes.
Like, how noisy is it when they get ice? Is the bar open? Are they going to be putting ice in the glasses? How loud's that? Where's the door? Where are the toilets? Where's that person? Is that couple having a row in the second?
Yeah.
All this stuff.
That person's been an arsehole since it started. Think they're going to say something. Like, you've got all these things to think about. And it's so weird that we've just not got that at the minute. We've not got that heightened sense of... What's the word? Again, what's the word?
Yeah, the only thing you have to think about now when you're doing the Zoom gigs is is my internet connection good enough, and can they see that I'm still wearing pyjamas?
Yeah.
Those are the two thoughts going through your head.
That is it. I put perfume on for a gig yesterday. I'm like, what's the fucking point of this?
Oh, mate, I had a smear test and I put it on for that. I was like, I'm making an effort.
If just anything. I'm at the dentist tomorrow. I can't bloody wait.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to go to the dentist. So, by the way, he was 17 when he joined the army, and he was only there for 3 years. Now, later on, it sort of came out that there were some vague details about an accusation of sexual misconduct whilst he was in the army, but that's all I can find on that. But so there's sort of something murky going on there.
In 1977, he graduated from UCLA, the School of Fine Arts. And then he decided, which we'll get to in a bit, he then went to New York to study. And he studied film at New York University under Roman Polanski. Interesting.
Just one of the good guys.
Yeah, oh, what a great guy. He's a paedophile, I can say that.
Yeah. Will you give me 2 seconds to go and have a wee? I stupidly didn't have one before.
Of course, go for it.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I went to the other bathroom because I didn't want you to hear me expelling waste from my body. I just thought, it's Valentine's Day, I owe you that at least.
That's very kind of you, I appreciate that.
You're one of the longest relationships and most consistent relationships of my life. You don't need to hear that.
That's a lovely sentiment, and I thank you for it. I've got a Sainsbury's order coming, so if that... I mean, we've got time. Anyway.
Oh, someone's doing all right.
Well, I'm not actually. I just don't want to go to a supermarket. Like, Tim's mum's popped me on the... she gets Sainsbury's deliveries to their gaff, which I understand because they live in the middle of nowhere. But she's popped me on her thing so I can just order food. Do you know what? This is the most boring thing I'm going to say, apart from decoupage. It is much better to do your order once a week, I think, if you can, because you don't wastefully buy anything.
I agree.
It's very good. Anyway, back to the point. Roman Polanski, right? So, do you know there used to be a dog near me? You know, one of these dogs that just roams around that everyone knows? That was called Polanski. It's fucking weird,
I think there used to exist far more those dogs that were just like neighbourhood dogs.
Yeah, like you knew where it lived, but it just did its own thing. Yeah, that was called Polanski. Big white dog. Really weird that when you think back, isn't it? It's like, you're just like, oh, I saw Polanski before, he was, bothering a small dog, no. We saw Polanski before, he was just over the road. So weird. Anyway, but before it goes to New York, the first known crime takes place in 1968. Now, this is horrible, so strap in. An eyewitness, this is in Los Angeles, so an eyewitness alerts the police because he sees Alcala luring a girl, an 8-year-old girl called Tali Shapiro, into his car. Now, he follows him and gets to his house. The eyewitness goes to find a payphone, because obviously before mobile phones, and he takes Tali Shapiro into his house. Now, he phones the police, the eyewitness, or she, I'm not sure, and they knock on the door, and Rodney answers the door completely naked and says, don't worry, I'll be with you in a minute. So he closes the door, and the police officer's waiting, and then he thinks, oh, this is just, I'm getting a bit concerned about this. So he kicks the door in, and he goes in, and he finds Tali Shapiro naked in the living room. She'd been raped, beaten with an iron bar, and she was basically dying. Now, Alcala had jumped out of the window and done a runner by this point, so the police officer makes the right decision in thinking, right, I've got to save this little girl, which he does. She was in a coma for 33 days. Really, really horrible. This is when he escapes and goes to New York as well, and that's when he enrolls in the film school. Probably using one of his numerous he was using the I think he was called John Berger at the time. That was his spelled alias.
Berger, because he changes it again. Now, Tali does live, and the only positive really to come from this horrific attack is that she doesn't remember it. The only thing she remembers is him approaching her. He basically pulls up in a car and says, oh, I'm a friend of your parents and I've got a picture to show you. And, very trusting 8-year-old little girl gets in the car with him. And then, thankfully she doesn't remember anything after that. So, he basically... It's amazing, isn't it, that it was the 70s, and so technology wasn't there to support the police, and things are a bit lax, so he was able to just basically go to the other side of the country.
Yeah. Change his name, go to the other side of the country.
And start again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where he had the Roman Polanski, and so he's living in Manhattan at the time, and then he gets a job over the summer working in a summer camp, and he changes his name to John Burger, as in the thing that you eat, the spelling of that. And he spends his summer at this camp in New Hampshire. Have you ever been to like a summer camp for anything?
No, because I'll be honest with you, it would have been my worst nightmare as a kid or a teenager because I was so fucking shy.
Really?
Yeah, so you know those PGL holidays, like, I don't know if they still have them, like adventure holidays for kids. My mum always used to get the brochure about those, and sort of, to try and encourage me to be more outgoing and confident, would sort of semi-threaten me with the fact that I might have to go to one of those for 2 weeks. And I remember just being so frightened and like thinking,
really?
Yeah, like it was. And one of the worst days I ever remember as a kid was my mum, because honestly, you wouldn't believe how shy I was. It was absolutely ridiculous. In fact, you know, Rod Gilbert's done that documentary about shyness. Yeah. I've never related to something so much. Like when he did that documentary, I was like, fucking hell, oh my God, this is me. Like obviously I'm a lot better than I used to be. But I remember my mum saying to me when I was probably about 8, you know, because I was so shy and I wasn't very outgoing. She was like, well, I think you need to join Brownies. And all day, I just remember dreading the fact that I might have to go to Brownies. And I was like, oh, God, I wish I was dead. Like, this is the worst thing. And like, I was imagining all these scenarios, was so nervous about it. And when I got home, she'd totally forgotten about it. And I was like, oh, thank fuck for that. Like, I remember the relief was just like, oh, I don't have to interact with anybody. This is amazing.
Fucking hell, it's amazing how far you've come now. Because, you know, when I was younger and just more of a cunt and slightly more militant, I remember just not having any level of empathy and thinking that all shy people were rude, because it just meant that they didn't want to talk to you and they couldn't be bothered to, and they could if they wanted to. And also that was my own sort of what's the right phrase, intellectual insecurity of thinking I was being judged by because I was loud, and everyone just assumes I'm thick because I'm loud, and have always been very precocious and loud. So I thought any shy people were just opting out of talking to me because they thought I was thick, and so I just thought they were all rude. That was where I would come at it from. And of course it wasn't. Like when I hear you talk about that now, it just like, oh God, that poor kid. Because you also, I'm sure there's a part of you that wants to join in and wants to, when you see other people having fun, in inverted commas.
Yeah, I mean, and then the worst is when you do try and join in, like when I did the bloody school talent show and I decided to do an impression of fucking Dennis Norden. I mean, you make the wrong decisions. It's like the time that you build up the courage and you fucking embarrass yourself. So it's like, right, back into the shell, please. Thank you very much. It's just like, it's like you just couldn't win. You couldn't win.
Yeah.
And then when you do show a little bit of willing, like, you know, the time when we were doing Oliver at junior school, and I wanted to be Bill Sykes and they wouldn't let me. So there was a time where I'd like shown willing and come out of my shell, and then I was just fucking shot down again. It's like, well, you can't be Bill Sykes, that's a part for a boy. But Oliver was played by a boy, so make your fucking choices better. Yeah. Anyway, what I'm saying is I feel a lot better now. But no, I've never been to a summer camp. Have you?
Yeah, well, I went to... There was a camp called Glanllyn that will mean an awful lot to people who were educated in North Wales and nothing to anyone else. It was basically a camp where you went... I think the thinking was behind it is if you build a raft, you'll be able to speak Welsh at the end of it. So it was a camp where you would go to improve your Welsh in school. And everyone would speak English all the time, obviously, but in front of the tutors, you'd have to do everything in Welsh. Mm-hmm. So there was raft building, but mainly you would just stay up and try and smoke. That was the whole point of the thing. And you do dansagorion, is it? It's folk dancing.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, but obviously that was the worst part of it when you and having to hold hands with someone next to you.
Yeah,
you know, all that stuff being absolutely mortifying as a 12-year-old. And I used to go to, and this is just strap in because this is pretty fucking out there of me. I had several years where I went to Pony Club camp, the toughest of all the camps. But actually I really loved that. That was just basically staying in static caravans, doing spells late at night, and then riding ponies in the day.
That sounds like my ideal life now, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah,
I'd go for that. I think a lot of American kids, American listeners, maybe they did this a lot more than we would do. I think it's quite a traditional thing to do, American, isn't it? You know,
definitely. My sister-in-law Yeah, my sister-in-law is very involved in a camp that she used to go to and her mum used to go to, and so she's a counsellor at the camp, and they go every year. It's to the side of this big lake. I know which lake it is, but I'm not going to say it. And it's I think it's an all-lady camp as well, so it's a really good chance for like women to bond and young girls to talk to older girls. And I just think it's she has such fond memories of it, and she'll talk about like, oh yeah, my camp friends. So she'll have a whole circle of friends. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
That's really nice. Well, for Rodney, it wasn't. It's probably a good thing that he joined this, because what happens is, because the police are searching for him in Los Angeles, the FBI added him to the 10 most wanted list, and this was in early 1971. Now, these posters were displayed in many places, including post offices. So, a few months into the poster being out, some kids from the camp go down to the post office, presumably to send letters to the parents, like little swats, I don't know. And having a lovely time at camp, haven't been fingered. They said...
Well, that would be a fucking lie if it's anything. All the camps that I've gone to, that's all you're trying to do.
Oh, God. I tell you what, if I'd have gone to one of these as a kid, I'd have been hiding under the bed. I don't think I couldn't... I'm just thinking of younger me having to go to one of these things. I would have... Oh, God, I would have hated it. Anyway, so the kids are in the post office, and they're like... Looks like... John Berger, that, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, I think that is John Berger. But also, for the kids, best summer ever. I mean, yeah, so we went to summer camp, and then we saw an FBI Most Wanted poster, and we found out it was one of the guys that was working at the camp, and then it turns out, like, that's a story for the kids, isn't it? They would...
It's absolutely fucking brilliant.
They would be loving that, yeah. So, they report him, and he's arrested, and then he's extradited, isn't he, to Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Yeah. As you said, America's so big you get extradited in the same country.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? So, yeah, he gets extradited back to California. However, Tally's family have since relocated to Mexico, and they refused to let her testify because, there's so much of the attack she couldn't remember, and they didn't want to distress her. But because there wasn't a witness, they couldn't convict him of rape and attempted murder. So they basically had to offer a lesser charge, which he pled guilty to. Now, at the time, they were operating this thing called indeterminate sentencing program, which meant that as soon as a inmate exhibited signs of rehabilitation, they would be released very quickly, which means that he served less than 2 years in prison before being released.
For an awful crime and an attempted murder.
Yeah, but I mean, he was only sentenced to a few years anyway, and then they released him in 1974, and then that was it. Although, we should say that there's something else that's happened here. So, in June of 1971, there was a 23-year-old flight attendant called Cornelia Michelle Kiri, I think is how you pronounce it, 2 L's in it. And so she was found in her apartment, and she'd been strangled to death. Now, at the time, the police are like, where has this come from? There's no evidence, like we can't find, interviewed everyone in her life, got no idea. It was just one of those things of like a random attack. And it was a random attack. And it took them 39 years to solve the case because technology obviously in the 70s wasn't brilliant. But in 2010, they tested a fingerprint that was found at the scene of her murder in her apartment, and it was matched to Rodney Alcala. So by this summer, he had killed someone and, was working with kids on a summer camp, and there had been a murder, but it wouldn't be solved until not that long ago.
Blimey. He was actually rearrested 17 months after his release as well, because he assaulted a 13-year-old girl, Julie J., who he'd offered a ride to...
No, mate. 2 months after his release.
Oh, fucking hell. It was so he served 17 months, I think it was, wasn't it? So 2 months after his release, he assaulted a 13-year-old girl called Julie J. After he offered her a ride to school. I mean, he's a fucking dangerous man.
Yeah, he didn't just offer her a ride to school, he raped her as well.
I mean, these are brutal attacks. I mean, after that first one, I mean, that is not enough time to serve.
No.
For what you've done.
Yeah, whether it's a lesser crime or not, you also, as a judge or a jury, you know what he actually did.
If he hadn't been interrupted during that crime, that girl would have died.
Yeah, well, both of them would. I'm sure. So when the 13-year-old, he did go back to prison for 2 years, but then got paroled again, because it's on this basically, as soon as you exhibit good behaviour, right, you're out, you're rehabilitated. And, you know, I'm not averse to the idea of rehabilitation, but part of me thinks if you, obviously in a premeditated way, like with Tally Shapiro, pull up, coax a child into your car, take them to your apartment, sexually assault them, and then beat them with an iron bar, and then when the police turn up, you have the presence of mind to escape and buy yourself time to do that. I think that shows a level of like psychopathy and planning that says like, oh, he's not going to get better because he's playing ping pong in prison for a few hours every day. Well, I mean, like there's something that this guy needs to forever be on like a high like security watch list. This is not some like, not that this is ever, you know, fine, but this isn't a scorned lover. This is someone who's, you know, like found an 8-year-old and beaten them and sexually assaulted them. Like, I'm not like throw away the key, but you're gonna have to show me a lot of fucking rehabilitation before you're out of prison.
Well, the thing is, it's like, you know, prison is primarily for rehabilitation, and that is right in my opinion. However, I think some people commit such dreadful crimes that affect the life of somebody and their family to an extent that, I'm sorry, you fucked it, mate. You're staying in. And I fully, I mean, continue with the rehabilitation, but you're in massive danger and you've done something that there is no amount of times you can say, I'm sorry, I'm better for certain things. So, tough shit. That's my opinion, hard line. But do continue with the rehabilitation. Let them do a bit of decoupage. That might calm them down. Maybe that's what I'll do, go into prisons and help with do decoupage. Just blunt scissors, I guess, in there.
I guess I always think that there's always the capacity for rehabilitation. You kind of have to think that. But I also think there's always the capacity for people who don't want to engage with it and are very badly damaged, etc., that it would be so hard. And do we even have the resources and the time to make that happen? And if we don't, you know, keep working on it in prison. But I think the primary aim should be keeping people safe above that. Above rehabilitating, above letting that person out.
But then again, it's like sometimes when somebody has committed such a dreadful crime, or, you know, for example, can you imagine if Ian Huntley suddenly said, it was suddenly deemed like, he's fine now, he's not a danger, he's never going to do anything like this again. You can't release him then for his own safety, because he'll get tracked down and he'll be killed because he's
because there are people from very famous emotive cases in Britain, and there's a lot of money spent, you know, hiding their identities. I'm thinking about the two boys who killed James Bulger and Maxine Carr.
I think with the kids who killed James Bulger, that might be a little bit easier because they were kids at the time, and then, you know, they've grown into men. So there's not any, or there shouldn't be, any thing of what they look like now, if that makes sense. Like, I think as well that they were young people, and you like to assume that maybe young people, I mean, one of them keeps repeat offending anyway, but you like to think that a younger person can be rehabilitated. But I don't know, I just think, you know, for example, the Yorkshire Ripper never deserved to get out of prison, and Ian Huntley does not deserve to be let out of prison. Sometimes when you've done something, it's fucking tough shit. You're staying where you are. And you're still going through the rehabilitation process, but you ain't getting out, love. And I think I should be a parole officer. I think I'd be quite, sympathetic.
Sympathetic?
Well, I'm very sorry, Ian, but you're fucking staying where you are.
Yeah, I know. I do think there's an element where you don't want it getting to the point where people feel that they have a right to enact mob justice on someone.
Definitely.
But that happens a lot, I'm sure, where people get released and people are like, you just wait, we're going to track them down, and it never happens. Because that was sort of floated over the lads that killed James Bulger. John Venables and Robert... Thompson, yeah. It's so funny. Are we talking about how we think we know who Robert Thompson is?
It's a convincing argument.
Yeah, we've had a conversation that we think we know who he is and where he is.
Yeah. but it's so convincing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like when I've told people that doesn't know the person, I go, yeah, what do you think about this, right? And then I sort of tell the story, and then I show the picture, they go, fucking hell, you might be right.
And there are, I went down a rabbit hole with that absolutely appalling, terrifying case.
Yeah.
It's not very hard to find pictures of them. Like, it's not very hard to find pictures of the people, the boys who did it as adults. It's such a sad case.
I just think it's so difficult, isn't it? I mean, as I say, one of them keeps repeat offending and can't keep his mouth shut. He's clearly... I don't think he should have been released. I don't think he was... the other ones just got on with life, I suppose. But, God, it's just so difficult, isn't it? All the time, and you must constantly be looking over your shoulder. And it's tough shit, you've committed a horrible crime. So that is part of your punishment as well. But, yeah, it's a fucking horrible situation. It's like a horrible situation for everybody involved, isn't it? Like, there's not one person that has been, fine in that entire thing.
Yeah, it's really, really sad.
Anyway, Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope that if you're with someone and you believe in it, that they've given you something or made you something nice. I hope if you're on your own, have a lovely bath and a wank. And if you're with someone... and they've let you down, you got that feeling in the pit of your stomach where you're like, I'm sure there's something better than this. Leave them. You get it all planned so you can just leave them as soon as lockdown ends.
Yeah,
get them gone.
Life's too short, isn't it? Or at the moment it feels very long, but we'll be released back into the wild at some point, I imagine.
Life is too short to spend with someone who is a piece of shit.
Hey, I tell you what, anyone in Australia, I have to say, good for you lot. You're back to pretty much normal at the moment, aren't they? I keep looking at pictures of people that I know that live in Australia, and my mind can't comprehend it. I'm like, what? They're having a drink in a pub? They're in a restaurant? That's a comedy gig that's happening? What? It's blowing my mind, I tell you. Can't believe it. Cannot believe it. I can't wait till we're back to that, if we ever do get back to that. In this pathetic island.
Yeah, fucking plague island, fucking up at every point. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there, and hopefully people won't have totally forgotten what live comedy is. But
yeah, I think people are loving online stuff at the moment. I think it's a real... What's the word? Also, I was thinking the other day, doing it online really opens it up to people that, which we've never really thought about before as comedians or comedy clubs or whatever. It really opens it up to people that can't access things or go out. Do you know what I mean?
I've been saying this since day one.
I honestly cannot believe it. Like, it's spun me out. I'm like, why have we never... Some people's lives must be so enhanced by the amount of online stuff that you can engage with at the moment.
Of course. The reason we haven't thought about it is because we're all incredibly ableist. So it's just that we don't think outside of our own experience. So we think, if you don't come to a comedy night, it's because you don't want to come. And we don't think, it's not because you've got social anxiety disorder or your skin or you've got childcare issues or the venue's got poor access or any number of things that make a live comedy in venues prohibitive. And so, opening stuff up and having it online has been so positive, I think. Because it's not like people didn't want to engage with live comedy. It's that we never gave them an adequate opportunity to do it in a way that was safe and right for them. Yeah. So I hope that we move forward and we do sort of hybrid and we still stream stuff. Although I don't want the thing of being like, you and I both get annoyed about this, where, like, you'll put, especially new material night, it'll go out and then that'll be it. And Covid On stays up for 2 days so key workers can watch it and then it comes down. But when people are like, can you send... I actually want to buy a ticket retrospectively, or like, I missed this, aren't you putting it up? And it's like, they treat you... They expect everything now to be on demand.
Yeah.
Like, and you to work around them, as opposed to, no, it's like a gig. If you weren't there, you missed it. And they're like, but you can just do that. And it's like, yeah, but there's also reasons why we don't.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Just this thing of being like, we're there to facilitate them and their busy lives of Zoom quizzes.
Yeah, and just even in this sort of era that we live in now, I feel that. So, for example, like, I did new material night last night. That's done and dusted. It's there, and then that live has to stay just live sometimes, because some jokes work because you're there in the room, because you've had the build up from another thing that you've mentioned before, and then if you're watching it on demand, there's something lost in that. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not on board from the first word. You're not involved in the environment. You're watching something that happened that was a collection of people together to watch the thing. So I think there is always something lost. If you, especially new material, fucking hell, who wants to watch a new material night? Like, back.
Yeah, quite agree.
I've got to watch it, and I don't want to, and I'm in it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I quite agree. Well, that's a nice clean rant to end on.
Yeah, lovely stuff. That is, and a lovely yawn to see us into the day. It's still early. It's 9 o'clock. I don't know why I'm talking like I'm on the radio. It's still early. It's 9 o'clock. What are you
Which
having
is what
for
I'm going to be doing.
Oh yeah, you're doing
just
your
a few
show
hours. Yeah.
Lovely. I've got. What am I doing today? Oh, do you know what? I'm not doing anything. I've decided.
Good for you, mate.
Good for me. I'm gonna get me Sainsbury's.
Treat yourself.
delivery.
Bath and a wank.
Oh, well, I'm gonna have a bath and a wank. What a horrible thing to do. We'll get part 2 out very soon, I reckon.
Yes.
Yeah, while Rodders is still fresh in our head. And Rodders. And yeah, that's it really. But thank you, just to say thank you for everyone who donates to the Patreon.
Yes.
Huge thank you for that. No pressure to do it, but we do appreciate everyone that does. And thank you to everyone that has continued to listen, and everyone that's come to online things that we've done as well.
Yeah.
Separate from the podcast. So yeah, that's much appreciated as well. Just a nice thank you.
And I found a great, very weird case that's not a murderer, but a very weird... that thing I sent you the other day, Rachel.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do our next live show about a very strange guy who used to chop off the knobs of dead people.
Yeah, I genuinely can't wait for that one.
Is he Welsh? Of course he fucking is. So yeah, that we've got a live show that we could do. So we'll have a chat about how and when we'll do that if you're up for it. But
definitely.
we obviously don't want to live show you out, as in people are like, yawn, bored of that. So let us know what you think.
Yes.
And thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. So we're going to go, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Okay?
Oh, okay. Yes, okay. That sounds lovely.
You ready? If you're happy... You've got to sing with me, Rachel.
Oh, if you're happy
and you know it, clap your hands.
Clap your hands.
Great.
Oh, fucking hell. What a life.